slavery.
Hello, everybody. How you doing? Happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday night. I hope all of you have had a great day. I'm your moderator, Jalen Nash, and this is Blue Talk. On this episode, we're very excited to talk to you. We're going to be talking really about college, specifically student loans and everything going on at the White House in terms of student loan forgiveness. Definitely excited to talk to my wonderful panelists about that. So once they get on, we're gonna get started. Oh, look, there they are right now. So before we start, I'm just gonna wanna give my two panelists a chance to introduce themselves. Keisha, you could go first. Tell me your name, a fun fact about you, and where you're from.
All right, hello everyone. My name is my real name is actually Frankisha Williams, but I go by Keisha. I am from Denmark, South Carolina, and a fun fact about me is I don't sound like it, but I can sing very well.
That's what's up. Talented panelist. Amina, would you like to introduce yourself as well?
Yes, sure. My name is Amina Ghaffar. I'm from Pembroke, North Carolina originally, but I currently reside in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I am currently occupying Lumbee Territory and Catawba land. And that's one thing, a way to show solidarity with Indigenous communities is to kind of like name the ancestral lands or the lands of the tribes, that the territory that you're occupying. And an interesting thing about me is I used to compete as a heptathlete in college.
That's what's up. That's dope. Very talented panelists. I love that. So both of you, from what I got from that, both of you have either went or are in college right now, which is why I'm super excited to talk to you about the subject we have at hand, pretty much student loans, student loan forgiveness. I don't know if you guys have been watching the news, but a big thing in Joe Biden's campaign was talking about forgiving $10,000 in student loans. A lot of people like that. A lot of people put him in office for that. Somewhere between the time he got elected and today, the number rose to 50. So we're not really sure on the logistics right now. But before we really dive in, I just wanted to give the panelists an opportunity to talk about what 10K in student loan forgiveness would mean to them.
All right, so I'll go first. 10K in loans would definitely mean a lot. I feel like college is like you need it, of course. If you want, especially if you want to make the type of money that you're looking to make, and for it to be such a strong necessity in society today, it is pricey. And then at the same time, you expect college students to maintain great grades in order for you to obtain scholarships, but you can only do so much of that when you are working a job at the same time. So 10K in scholarship forgiveness, well, towards my tuition would definitely help out for me. So.
Definitely. Definitely. And Amina, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Keisha was saying. And I think it would mean a lot to a lot of people. And one thing I do want to make sure I emphasize is that it's one thing to, have like this lump sum of forgiveness, but it's also important to attack these interest rates on these loans too.
Interesting. Can you talk about that a little bit more? So I know they paused the payment on interest until, is it September? But can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, and that's one thing I noticed, and I think there's been a lot of stories of people talking about, how they would have even had their loans paid off if it wasn't for the interest rates. And I think that it says a lot about these loan companies when they have these. I think of it as like legalized loan sharking. I'm gonna put it like that.
Definitely.
In the sense that you got these high interest rates and you're making it impossible for people to pay off their debts, and it's a money racket. And so I think with this legislation, they definitely need to address that as well and put some type of cap on these companies, because we understand you got to make profit, but not at the expense of the next generation of workers in your community.
Definitely, definitely. And it seems like this problem has been a problem for a very, very long time. For whatever reason, it's definitely getting worse with our generation. So they definitely need to cut that down. But that kind of brings me to an interesting question. So I think we're probably around the same age, like 20 to 25, maybe, I'm guessing. So I'm pretty sure all of us kind of grew up with the same ideas of higher education and why going to college is important, and that if we go to college, we'll leave and get a great job. I don't know how close that reality is to you guys right now, but looking at the statistics, more than 1 in 4 current students who've taken out student loans are delinquent on their payments right now. An even bigger percentage of people are just in entry level jobs making less than maybe 20 an hour. Definitely not enough to cover all of their debts and hit that interest, as Amina was talking about. So when you guys look at higher education, I'd love for you guys to talk, one, a bit about like your expectations versus reality, and two, specifically with student loans. Like, do you think student loans are really there to help students get an education, or do you think, like I said, it's a way for them to just get profits off of people who might not know any better?
Um, okay, so in my opinion, to answer, well, I'm going to start with your last question first. I feel like it is to be more profitable due to the fact that I always wonder why anybody, whether it's be a 2 year college or a 4 year college, you start off with general courses. Now, me, I graduated high school out of the top three of my class, but the point being, you have students who may have not done that, but you still have students that have taken AP classes, college courses, dual enrollment, etc. But why is it that we must take these general courses if we just come out of high school taking them? So I feel like it's extremely profitable because a 4 year college could be reduced to maybe 3 years or 2 years. If you're going to incorporate general, incorporate it quicker into people's major. In my opinion, and being that I am a junior, as a psychology major, you kind of get straight into your courses because you have a lot of general psychology courses to take as prerequisites. But at the same time, I feel like it's overrated. Like you tell me I need college, but you pull it out of my reach for me to even be able to afford it, as opposed to saying I want to live in the 3 story house, white picket fence type of story. But at the same time, how can I afford that while paying student loans at the same time and managing a family or a job like you say, working that pays minimum wage?
That's a fact. That's a fact. I definitely feel that. Amina, did you have any thoughts on that? You were nodding your head.
Yeah, for sure. I was feeling that. Like the general education courses, girl, you hit that right on because it doesn't make any sense. You know, like you said, we do all these classes in high school and you got to do them again first year of college, unless you take AP courses or IB courses. But I think that depends. And then they put the pressure on the test scores, and you know, everybody's not a great test taker. So, you know, I think everybody should have the opportunity to go ahead and, like Keisha said, jump into their major. And then, you know, another point to that is, you know, there's people that want to go to professional school. They want to go to graduate school, continue their education. And so, you know, you're thinking about hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt accumulating, all because, and, you know, we're constantly told, like, we need more Black doctors, we need more Native doctors, and we need more lawyers, we need more this, we need more that. But everybody can't afford to take on that amount of debt that it would take to get through all of that schooling. And so, you know, these are all things that we got to think about in the grand scheme of things. It's like, okay, well, you want us there, so you need to pave the way for us financially to get there.
Definitely. That's a big fact. And I kind of, from what you guys are saying, I hear two themes. One, that college is way too expensive, it shouldn't be. And two, that college isn't really educating people and giving them the skills that they need. So I'm going to approach this in two different ways. The first question I'm going to ask, say both of you were the president, chancellor of your own private university right now. You were in charge of all the strings. You had to try to make a profit, yes, but also educate the kids. What would be like the first things you do as president, and how would you kind of ensure that college is affordable and educate students? What like tips would you give maybe?
Okay. Some tips that I would incorporate is I would first and foremost lessen the amount of time that you have to be there. Um, for undergraduate studies, like as I previously stated, the general courses, yes. In some cases, it may be necessary because you may not got it the first time in high school. But I do feel that with lessening the time, you create less stress on the amount of teachers that you have to pay, which could lower the amount of tuition, as well as lower the amount of the institutional funds that are needed, because that way you would have less time for students to be to need on campus housing, because that is a huge bill as well. And then the less time that you're there, it would decrease the amount of cafeteria funds that you may need. So I would focusing on lessening the time that you will be there, as well as creating a, I would say a good idea would be to create a um, fund or a grant that gives all students free books. I know for a fact that this semester alone, I chose 5 classes on my junior schedule, and I paid like $600 in books
Dang.
in that alone, and more, even more of that if all of my textbooks were required. So I would start with something like that.
Definitely, definitely. Those are really, really good ideas. I love that. Amina, you have any thoughts?
I'm kind of radical, y'all.
Tell us. Spit it.
So my thing is, I have this thing about Western education. Period. I think that there's some value in it, but I'm a big proponent of introducing like indigenous centric curriculum in terms of like, and just giving students options, like give students options. And when I say that, I mean like you allow the students to kind of explore the things that they're interested in, kind of like what we were talking about earlier. Like go ahead and let them jump into their majors. And they even do that in some countries in Europe. Like they don't have to waste time like studying something that they're not going to use for their career. And so like I would have a track like that, and then I'd have a big endowment program, and people would have their school paid for. We would find ways to pay for that school. There's too much money running around in this country, and there's all these philanthropy projects and stuff, and we're not using a lot of that stuff to focus on people's education. And I just want to throw out there too, I think there's a big misconception about the Native American community that people assume that all of our schools paid for, and that's not the case. So yes, there are scholarships like aimed towards like tribal communities, but we still have to compete for them just like everybody else. And then there's a different the way the system works is that normally those scholarships are only for federally recognized tribes. And so in North Carolina, there's 8 recognized tribes, but state recognized tribes. There's only 1 federally recognized tribes. So all of those federal programs there's 7 tribes in the state of North Carolina that do not get access to those federal programs. So there's like a lot of politics when it comes to like, how those funds get distributed. And then that pot's small and you got over 500 tribes pulling from it. So, just like things to keep in mind, and just creating more resources to allow everybody to have opportunity.
Definitely. So earlier, don't mute too fast. You said something about Western education and like how you don't necessarily think it's valuable like all the way. Could you just talk a little bit about that? I'm not really sure how like other places educate their children or students, but if you could give insights, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Pretty much the system we're in is Western education. And my background is actually in integrative medicine. I have a master's in physiology and integrative medicine. And but I'm going to medical school because I want to get allopathic medicine, MD, Western medicine, or whatever, because that's like the system of the land. But so with Western education, it's just like Western society. It's very individualistic. Indigenous societies are very communalistic. We're all about helping each other, having more of a emphasizing like creating relationships, and also removing the hierarchy. And so like in Western education, teachers are kind of just pouring information into you from one perspective. But in a more indigenous centric approach would be the teachers are pulling just as much from the students as the students are pulling from the teachers. And so it just kind of deads the hierarchy a little bit, and it allows students to kind of blossom. And when you allow students to have that freedom to express themselves, they find their passions that way. And when people are finding their passions, you know, they're gonna be happy people. They're gonna go into a career with a good mindset. And you know, there's just all this positive. There's so many positive things that could come out of that.
That's dope. That's dope. I definitely appreciate that insight so much. I'd love to talk about that point a little bit more at a later date, but we only have about 30 minutes, so I got to move on. But that was definitely interesting. Something you referred to was when talking about the 8 tribes, but only having one federally recognized one, was really how marginalized communities have huge barriers to education across the board. A lot of these are legal barriers that are put in place on purpose, like things that Amina just stated. Others are more insidious. Um, Sorry, one of our panelists just left. But yeah, others are more insidious. But regardless, education in America, as you were talking about before, is kind of the way of the land. So I'm curious, you said you were a radical. You talked about the difference between Western and other forms of education. I'm wondering, say you have a child. I don't know if you have a child, but say you had a child and they had just graduated high school or they were a junior or senior in high school. What would you tell them is their best step to take after high school? Do you think it's going to a university or college? Perhaps is it a trade school? Is it neither? How would you kind of direct someone coming out of high school in what and how they should pursue education?
That's a difficult question because, um, you know, it's just hard to kind of like have one blanket solution for everyone because I mean, everyone's got different skills, everyone has different abilities or things that they excel at, you know, and I think it's important to, again, just give people the option to do what they feel that they can do best at and kind of educating people because I think a lot of people don't understand what a trade school is. And so, you know, even just giving people access to information that kind of explains like the differences and allowing them to be able to choose. So, you know, I would just give everybody, I would put all the options on the table and let them choose and giving them that autonomy about how they want to live their life.
Definitely, definitely. And Keisha, we probably had some technical difficulties, but I'm gonna just run the question back to you real quick. So Amina was talking earlier about how a lot of marginalized communities have trouble getting into education, especially higher education, whether that's cost, whether that's access to scholarships, whatever the reason is, we just have barriers. So the question was, if you had someone in your family who was a high school junior or senior, and they were looking at the next phase of their life, would you tell them that they should go to college? Would you tell them that maybe they should go to trade school instead? Would you say neither? Learn from the internet? Like, where? How would you direct someone in high school to kind of pursue their educational path?
Okay, so of course, I would advise them to go to college. The reason being, yes, it is expensive, but society today thrives on it. We sometimes we always want to live the lifestyle, have the dreaming, and I know several people who have done it, lived that certain lifestyle without even going to college. But I would say go to college because sometimes in college, yes, it's an educational experience, but I always feel like it's a stepping stone into the next phase after college as well. In college, you meet connections, you meet different people, even your can help you become long well they can become long lifetime acquaintances to the point where they can help you get certain things like my psychology teacher, his son is a clinical psychologist, and you know I've actually had conversations with him. So I would say use college as a stepping stool and give the meaning that society places on it, make it your own meaning by doing what you have to do.
Definitely, that's really, really good advice. I love that. I think I would probably agree with you. I do think college is important. There's definitely a lot of people you see these days on Instagram and Twitter, specifically Clubhouse. I don't know if y'all are on Clubhouse, but there's a lot of people out here who didn't go to college who might make a good income and have a good life. But I definitely think that from my experience, college is the best way to get a stable income and have like a stable kind of way of life. I think definitely avoid debt if you can. Look for all the grant and scholarship options that are possible. Um, yeah, and good luck. I know it's tough, but I definitely would go the college route at all as well. But to Amina's point, I definitely think it depends what you want to do and what your skill set. and what your skill set is. So I think probably just a few more questions because we're running out of time now. But I'm curious, since all of us have been to college once again, can you kind of talk to me, Amina specifically, because I know you have your master's. Can you talk to me about what you expected from your education versus what you got? Do you think, is there a gap there at all? Like looking back on all your college years, can you kind of give some insights on that?
Oh man.
I know that's a hard question.
Yeah, it's a loaded one. Yeah, well, I was a college athlete, so my experience was a little bit different. And it was more so about like juggling, well, just like what every other college student has to do, juggling and doing time management and things of that nature. But I would say academically, um, I would have liked to, again, just, kind of jumped right into it and not had to do any general education part of it. But again, at the same time, I think like English and the arts and, learning foreign language and stuff like that can be valuable too. Because, it's also real nice for the GPA when you're focusing on science, because I was a biology major. So, the chemistry classes be getting overloaded if you have 3 or 4 of them in one semester. So, it's good to be well rounded too. So I don't think I think electives are I enjoyed my electives, and I was very um, I'm blanking on the word I'm trying to say. I was very intentional about the electives that I chose, and I made sure that it kind of like balanced out and to where I wasn't so stressed out. And I would definitely encourage college students to do the same thing. And in terms of grad school, I think grad school is really where I actually blossomed as a student, because I wasn't, the reason I went to grad school because I wasn't ready to go to medical school yet.
Mm.
I was curious to learn more about my abilities and with the hard sciences and things of that nature. And it kind of opened me up more to, just a different way of thinking and being able to, I think that the way grad school is set up should be how undergrad is set up. But then again, it wouldn't give you the opportunity to explore. But when I got into my grad school program, it was like, okay, like I'm surrounded by people who are interested in the same things as me. And we're all passionate about it. And it kind of just creates this environment that just makes you want to learn more.
That's dope.
And you become really passionate about what you're doing.
That's dope. So you definitely say you learn more in grad school than in undergrad.
Yeah, in terms of like the way my professor put it is like it's not just like you're learning information and you're expected to take information in just for test taking purposes. You're really like synthesizing and kind of like taking in information to create new information.
Yeah,
So to use that information in your career, a little bit more.
that's what's up. That's awesome. That was a great insight. Keisha, I know you're a junior in college right now. So I'm curious, kind of just like from your experience so far, what's the difference between what you expected from your experience versus like where you're at right now?
Okay, so from my experience, honestly, I expected more. I would say just that I expected more experience. Honestly, at South Carolina State University, I have great professors. I have a lot of open communication with my social science department as a whole. But I would say that for the psychology majors, there are not even a lot of internships that are out there that are open to the students at South Carolina State University, because I know on several occasions I have asked my advisor, and there has been kind of like a blank stare in the middle between conversation with that.
Yeah,
I also expected to, I would say, like I said, more field work, as well as to be more involved in my major by my junior year.
mhm,
But it is certain classes that we aren't allowed to take until our senior year. But so far, so good. I'm enjoying learning my environment, and of course, South Carolina State University is a HBCU, so it's not that I haven't got that experience or exposure. Um, from the university itself. Love it. South Carolina State University has provided me many different opportunities, as well as placed a lot of emphasis on the psychology program. So I would
definitely.
just say that experience would have been more in the field for me.
Definitely. Can I ask you why you chose to go to HBCU, if you don't mind me asking?
Absolutely. I decided to go to HBCU because I honestly I had an experience with another university that was not HBCU,
Okay.
and the field. I mean, it was for I was recruited for a summer program, and I'm like, great, this is the opportunity for me to see whether I would like to go to maybe a PWI. But I chose the HBCU experience because I felt home. I'll be honest, there are not, I mean, I was able to see adversity at South Carolina State University, but there are more people that look like me as well. And there's nothing wrong with that diversity. But at the same time, at HBCU, I feel like it gives me more at home experience for what things that pertain to me that I've gone through. Because like I said, I am from the smallest town of Denmark, South Carolina.
Mhm.
So of course, the sky is not the limit. The sky is what you make it. But at the same time, that HBCU experience was something that I definitely was going to. I didn't want to feel like a member.
That's what's up. That's dope. That's dope. I could just answer the question about the difference between what I expected and where I'm at. So I graduated last May from Syracuse University, which is a PWI. Definitely very different from South Carolina State. But I think the biggest, I don't know if I've had enough time to really reflect to tell you the difference between what I expected and where I'm at. But I think a big thing I've learned in the last 6 months is that college prepare being educated and making money aren't the same thing. I think is the biggest thing that I've learned since graduating from college. I think that a lot of people go to college thinking I'm gonna get my degree and this is gonna make me money. Not only is it gonna make me money, but it's gonna make me like enough money that like I would want. And I think very few college students look and see what are people in your major making out of college, which I think is a very important thing to look up because it's something that I didn't look up and I was shocked. So I think that the biggest thing I've learned since college is that making money and knowing things are not the same thing. And if you want to make money, like that's a skill set in and of itself that you should learn. That is different from maybe being a dentist or being a nurse or being a psychologist or being a political scientist. Not the same thing. So I think that's probably the biggest takeaway I have from my last few months. Um, so for the next 5 minutes, I think I want to just ask some questions from the viewers. One of the viewers asked about free community college, which is pretty interesting. I know we spoke about student loan forgiveness. Another big proposal that Democrats have been talking about for a while is making community colleges free. Amina, do you have any thoughts on that, and if that would be helpful?
I have several, but
Okay.
yeah, I think that's one way to look at it, and I admire them trying to create, like a holistic plan that includes something like that. But um, I think there's just so many moving parts to it. Again, just like bringing back up the interest part of it, because free community college, so that takes care of what, 2 years, and you still got 2 more years at the next institution. So I think it's like, nice try, you halfway fixed it, but I still think that there's more work to do, and I don't think that our generation should settle. I think we should keep pushing and making sure that, when we say we want good education packages, we want good education packages. We want to be able to come out of school not being worried about having to pay off our student loans for the next 20 to 30 years. And, I'm not being dramatic when I say that. There's people who are literally 20,
For
30 years
real.
out of college that are still paying their loans. And I think that people need to really look at the socioeconomic status. I think that there's definitely probably like a sliding scale in there somewhere. You can do it based off of income. I kind of hate that. I feel like the doing it based off your parents' income is kind of a loophole that allows them to kind of like also dictate, whether or not somebody's going to be able to pay off their loans or not. Because sometimes people's parents don't help them.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just important to really look at. I think it's important to look at it on a case by case basis, and at the end of the day, I think it's an option. But why we are going to be the next generation of senators House of Representatives, lawyers, doctors, all of that. I think that is worthy for the people who are above us now, who are in those positions, to be taking care of us.
Definitely.
And we need to be taken care of. And
Definitely.
telling us to go to community college for 2 years and then good luck the next 2 years, or good luck with your master's degree, good luck with your PhD, good luck with whatever degree you're going to need, because you need about 3 or 4 degrees to get a job these days. And I'm not being dramatic about that either. Even in my field, I have a master's degree. It took me 2 years to get a job out of school, and I'm not even working in my field. So it's like, there's all these things. And I think that's another thing, is like also preparing and creating more programs that help students prepare for the real world. Like you were saying before, Jalen, there's a difference between like getting educated and making money. So, having more classes that talk about financial management and things like that in school, putting more emphasis on things like that. But I'm going to just go off on a tangent, but I'm going to stop right there and give Keisha a chance.
I would say that college. Well, I'm gonna piggyback on what Amina said. When you are in your field, when you get in your field, it takes time to get there. I mean, college is meant for the sole purpose of educating, but at the same time, I mean, okay, well, I know I had a teacher who used to always say, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. So that's why I said, like, on the previous question that you asked, I would advise people to go to college, because do what you love. Don't settle. And as Amina said, that we are the next group of senators. Maybe the president of the United States, whatever the case may be. But so often in our generation, I feel like we are so used to saying, okay, settle for this because the people who came before you worked for this. But at the same time, we have to find our own purpose and reasoning for what are we going to do it for, because if not, then making college free would defeat the purpose, because now you have such a valuable piece of information, because anybody could take my home, they could even rip up the degree that I have or several degrees that I have, but you can never take what I know away from me. So I feel like the college experience is ultimate, because you get to learn, absorb so much information. But I mean, and like I said, I live in a town where Denmark Technical College was actually free for a couple of years. But you have a lot of people who took advantage of that. But you also have to be aware that you don't just wake up and say, I have 3 degrees. Now, let me just go find a job. It's a process.
It
Because
doesn't work
even
like
when you are settling for a 9 to 5, you still have to go through a strenuous process as well.
Definitely, definitely. I really, really appreciate both of those insights. Last thing on the community college point, I think in addition to all the points you guys mentioned, I'm from New York, so I know New York has a lot of community colleges, but I'm pretty sure not all states have the same like robust community college network. So I think another place that like I'm concerned is that I'm sure there's a lot of states where free community college means nothing because you can't really access it. So I don't really know the numbers on that. I wish I had them off top, but I definitely think that's something we should think about when we're talking about free college. Not only people from like California, Texas, and New York deserve stuff like that. So hopefully they iron that out. But it's been almost 35 minutes, so we're going to close out the show. I appreciate both of my great panelists for their amazing insights. Keisha and Amina, you guys were great. Just to close out real quick, we've been talking about education for pretty much the whole day, the inadequacies of the current system, the costs, student loan forgiveness, all that. I'm curious if you guys could just be teachers for 1 second, and before you leave, teach us a lesson in 1 sentence. Give us a 1 sentence lesson to close that we can leave with for the week.
Okay, my one sentence is going to be, don't be afraid to go for what you want, because everything that you need to get there is already within you.
I love that. That's what's up. I love that. I gotta write that down.
Oh, Jalen putting us on the spot last minute. I'll just say, I guess to kind of echo what Keisha said, definitely follow your dreams and don't let anyone tell you that you can't do something.
Definitely. We love that. And I think my sentence will probably be, it was written. It was written. I'm gonna just keep it at that. But thank you guys so much for joining us, panelists. Thank you so much to the viewers who watched us for 35 minutes. I hope you have a great week. I hope you stay up to date with politics and get some of those student loans paid off. All right, I'll see you guys soon. Bye.
All right.
The police was started out of slavery.